some people who study, oh, I know some people who study for like 6 months or like months leading up to the exam, and that just doesn't work for me. I'll overstudy and then I'll overthink it. And for me, what seemed to help was not so much just studying like material for like recall type questions, but studying the rationale, because I found that after I had took a little bit of time after graduating to take my LMSW, but I still had everything from like grad school kind of still like fresh. And I think that helped me, but like being out of grad school for a few years and working in the agency I was working for, you just kind of like get into the hustle and bustle of like the agency stuff. And so when I was answering a lot of the practice questions, or when I took the practice test the first time, I was answering it from like the agency's point of view, or what I would do on an everyday basis. And that wasn't working out too great. And so when I would go back and look at the missing or the questions that I missed on the practice test, I would look at their rationale, which is frustrating sometimes because they'll have two answers that aren't necessarily like wrong answers, but for the sake of the exam, like one of them has to be wrong. And so it helped me to just kind of like get in the mindset of like, okay, they're looking at it as if like this is a perfect world and things don't happen. And sometimes you do have to do things out of order because that's just how it comes to you on a daily basis. But there's like a particular order that they're looking for, at least on the exam that I took. But the things that I used to study were the APGAR clinical exam. So I used this book, I read it. Some parts I skimmed because it was just things that I knew for sure. And then the things that I didn't know, I would look more into it. But I've started off by like reading through that. And then there's a practice test in the back of the book, and that's the one I did first. And so went back, looked at the rationale. It seemed to have, now in the practice test on this one, it has more recall questions. And not like a lot of scenario-based questions. So on my test that I took for my actual exam, it was solely like scenario-based. I didn't have but maybe one or two recall questions. I can't even remember a question if they asked me about a particular theory, or if they asked, I had one medication question and one DSM, like maybe one or two DSM questions, which I was actually thinking I would have more, at least like DSM, like diagnosing type questions, but I didn't. They were mostly all like scenario based. And I think what it seemed as though they were looking for is if you know like the therapeutic process, like engaging first and assessing, then planning. They want to know that you can see what part of the therapeutic process they're in and answer the question based off of that. And so that seemed to be the most helpful, was looking at that process and ethics. It was a lot of like ethics questions. And those kind of got me a little bit. Like there was one specifically that got me that I can remember. And then one of the answers was like, write the board and ask if this would be appropriate, or like a different answer. And I selected to write the board because I don't think that's a wrong thing to do. But for the sake of the test, it wasn't the answer they were wanting. They wanted to know that I knew specifically what to do in that case. So for me, when questions, I'm an overthinker. And when questions are asked like that, I overthink the question way too much. And so I ended up initially picking to write the social work board, which again isn't like, if you don't know what to do in real life, that's a good thing to do. But for the sake of the test, they want you to know specifically what to do. Another thing I used for studying, and I actually started this in March after I was done with supervision. I used the behavioral health app, which is pretty useful. I did it just to kind of like get myself in the groove of answering questions. So I did like the quick quizzes on there. And so it would be like 10 questions that'll pop up for the quick quizzes. And I would do that at work, or whenever I felt like I had just time to burn, I would just do a quick quiz. And that helped me see like what area, it'll break it down for you, like which content areas that you need to study more. So that would kind of let me know where I need to put more studying in. Because again, for me to overstudy something, like it doesn't help for me to look at stuff that I know I can recall. I need to like put more like time and energy into the things that I'm not really doing good at. Because again, I'm a overthinker. But I did the quick quizzes, and the only thing I will say about the quick quizzes and like when you take the practice exams is that they give you a percentage. And that was what kind of fed into my anxiety and made me feel like I wasn't prepared, because the percentage doesn't really correlate with how they, I guess, like grade the exam. So I was getting like 50%, 60%. And I was like, I'm not going to be ready. And it was like steadily, like still like 50, 60. I had gotten up to at least 70, but to me, that was still like, that didn't make me feel prepared. And so when I took I took a practice exam where it was timed. So on behavioral health app, they give you access to a practice exam, and it's timed. So I took that just so I could practice like sitting for 4 hours and reading the questions through. So at the end of that test, that was the last practice test I took before 2 days before the exam, and I made like a 64. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not about to take this exam. But according to the book, it says that the way to evaluate if you're truly prepared or not is, they said that most people need to at least answer 98 to 106 questions right. Because then that will put you in whichever bracket to at least get a score that'll pass. So on the first one, I read that and I went back and kind of looked at the first exam. I got 120 right. And then on the exam where I made a 64, I had answered 116 right. So I still was, according to that type of scoring, I was more than prepared. So I went based off of that, and I still went ahead and took the exam. But I wouldn't put too much emphasis on the percentages at all if you're doing the like the practice test at all, because it's not really indicative of whether you're prepared or not. I would use it as maybe a way to see how well you're like answering the questions, or to see I guess to see like how accurate you are answering the questions in a specific content area, but I wouldn't put too much into like the percentage at all. I would go based off of the quiz or the answering at least 98 to 106 questions, right? Because the way they explain it is that they take 5 questions, or those extra 20 that we have to take, they say they take 5 questions out of each content area. So I guess that's a way to ensure that you are answering the correct amount of questions, no matter which test you end up with. Let me see what else. But yeah, that was pretty much the way that I studied. It was just, again, there was a lot of like scenario-based questions, not a lot of recall, which I would think is kind of the downfall with studying with the book, is because it's a lot of information and they do have a lot of recall questions on there and a lot of theories. I think it would be more beneficial to kind of like brush up on the theories. One theory that I've never heard too much about, not in depth, that they actually talked about a lot in this book, was object relation theory. And so I would look at that. I don't know if it's like a more up and coming theory that's being used, but it was one that they asked about a lot in the book and on the app. But I would, and I also looked at RayTube. I think that's how you say his name on YouTube. He kind of breaks down how to answer the questions by going in that, and he also made up his own acronym to kind of go along with where the question is in the theoretical process that they're looking for. But that was pretty much most of the way how I studied. Renita said, did you see object relation theory questions on the actual test? I don't recall seeing that. I feel like the only theory that it mentioned was CBT. So I don't know if, oh yeah. I don't know if, I can't recall seeing an object relation theory on there. It was just mentioned a lot in this book, so I wasn't sure if it was something that they will have on there. In the book, they also mentioned like changes to the DSM-5, but there wasn't a question like that on the test. It was mainly like scenarios and what to do next, or what should you do first. And I will put the name of the YouTuber in the chat real quick. But yeah, that was pretty much how I studied. That was the method to my madness.
Can you now walk us through, Brittni, like once you got to the testing site? Because some people may not, you know, Michaela, she talked a lot about some changes from when she took her LMSW to when she took the LC in regards to just logistics and what you're able to do, and even the actual test itself with being able to flag or not flag. Do you mind walking us through that?
I was still able to flag the questions that and I had about 30 minutes left, which was that kind of, so that would also say that's a downfall of the, if you do the practice test through the app that's timed, it's just going off of the information that's in the book. So I finished that one in like 2 hours, but at the actual testing site, I only had about 30 minutes, 35 minutes left towards the end to go back and review the flag questions. And I think it was because they put a lot of information in those questions. So you get a whole lot of information and then the question at the end with the scenario-based questions. And so it didn't leave me with a lot. And then also the ones with the 3 answers, I didn't get a lot of those, but I did notice on the app, if you do the questions on the app, they've already changed the format to where they'll give you like ones with 3 answers. And what I noticed in the app is that it makes the answer longer. Like it's a lot of like just useless sentences in it. So it makes the question longer, but in the actual test, the answers weren't that long. And it did kind of, it did show, you could tell there was like a clear right answer. Like it wasn't anything tricky or anything like that with the 3 questions or the 3 answers. They do give you the whiteboard at the testing site. Other than the 3 answers, I can't recall if there was any difference or not. I thought they had made one where you could bring a snack in or something like that. But I wasn't able to. They told me to keep everything in my locker, so I wasn't sure about that. Trying to think if I can think of any other differences or if it felt different. It was still all pretty much the same besides the not, I really don't like the not giving me the pass or fail, like right there at the end. And then you can't read, I mean, the lady who was giving me everything back, she was really good about like being neutral face. So I couldn't even read her face to see what it said. But that part is anxiety inducing in and of itself. But the name of the app, or I was gonna go through and kind of get these questions over here in the chat. The name of the app is the Behavioral Health app. It used to be Pocket Prep, but now I think it's called Behavioral Health app. And then you just pick which exam that you're taking. And even so when you do the practice test that's through the Behavioral Health app, you can do it on your computer. So you don't have to do it on your phone. You can log in online and take it from the computer and it'll time it that way. Did you take I did. I took oh no, I didn't take the ASWB practice test. I did, I believe the ones I took for my LMSW word test, honestly, I had got them out of the Black Girls Social Work group back when they were allowing us to do that. So I had took 2 practice tests from there for my LMSW, and I studied the same way, except I wasn't aware of how many questions you should answer correctly. I scored it in percentages. And so with that one, it was, on my first test, I had gotten 70% right. And then on the second one, I had gotten 80%. But I feel like with the LMSW, it was a lot more recall questions than it was with the clinical one. I think that's the biggest difference. Where did I take the test? I took it in Decatur, which was Madison. I think it's Madison County. I think it's either Madison County or Limestone County, but it was just like 20 minutes for me. Do you still get to find out your score before you leave, or do you get a printout of your score on the way out the door? So when you go give them like the whiteboard back and everything, they give you your paper, and then you can see it as you're getting all your stuff on the way out. But again, the lady was very neutral faced. I could not tell if I had passed or failed. She just said, "Good luck." And I was like, yeah, that meant I failed, but I don't know. But yeah, so hopefully I would think that they should be neutral face. They shouldn't like wince or anything when they see this the score. How long do you think is too long to wait before testing? So with this one, since it's not based on recall, honestly, I'm not sure how to answer that question because I feel like it just depends on how prepared you feel. Um, Even though I didn't initially feel prepared after reviewing like how many questions that I need to answer correctly and knowing that I was, consistently answering in that within that block, I felt like I was going to be as prepared as I was going to be. I think the longer I think the longer your mindset is still in the same like everyday agency type of mindset, though, it's going to be harder to like fix your mind to go into this rationale that you're answering questions based on a perfect world. So I think as long as it takes you to like get that type of mentality down, that's how long you should take before taking the test. I don't think there's a too long or too short because I did the quick quizzes since March, but the actual studying part, I took 2 weeks, and that was all I could really do because the more I study, it just doesn't work out well for me because I can't remember everything anyway on a daily basis. So it's either I'm a forget old stuff and be remembering new stuff, or so I have to just kind of go in and say like I know what I know and I don't know what I don't know, but I know how to answer these questions. I know what mindset the people who made these questions would be in, and I feel like that helped me more than anything else. Decatur's and Morgan County. But since the exam is mainly scenario based, what would you suggest be the best way to prepare for the exam outside of the practice books and online tools? Is there anything we can do outside of that in terms of work, community activities, etc.? As far as I would say to prepare, besides using the books, I would say using the YouTube to kind of, because I know they break down like how to answer the questions, especially for like certain ones like first, next, or most and best. I would look at the YouTube because I try to go the free way as much as possible. So I would look at I think Philip Latrell is his name, and RayTube. They break down like how to answer their questions. But other than that, I don't think I'm sure like doing like a studying program or like what is it, the Agents of Change or the TJ, I'm sure those would help, but I think just preparing yourself to answer it in a way where you know that where the person who made up the questions are coming from. And you can tell that it's very much based on like, this is a perfect world. Because when I would go through and read their rationale, I'm like, well, you didn't mention, or I just assumed, I was doing a lot of assuming that this is what it was, because but they give you this much information, and so my brain is trying to like fill in the blanks and fill in the gaps of what I know would have already occurred in real life. But that's, I would say, don't assume. Go based off of exactly what the question is saying. Whatever information they put in there, just assume that it didn't happen. Because in the practice test, when I took it the first time, that got me a lot, was just trying to fill in these blanks of missing information, but the information is missing on purpose. Yeah, don't add anything to the question. I did that a lot.
Brittni, scroll up a little bit. Rakisha asked you a question before the other questions came, and y'all keep asking questions. This is good.
Oh. How is it now that you have the clinical license? Do you feel like you will receive more opportunities, or you're not, or you've not really looked into what you will do next? It feels like I've finally done, now that I have my clinical license. Like, I feel like I don't have to stress about anything anymore. And that feeling above everything else feels really, really good, to feel like I've, hit the mark that I've been working towards for a really long time. I do feel like I'll receive more opportunities, but I've kind of noticed that you can get opportunity if you're looking for it. If you're putting yourself in a position to receive opportunities, there'll always be opportunities, even with LMSW, MSWB. I see so many social workers that are just doing the damn thing, and it's amongst all types of licenses. And so I think when you're ready, when you're in a place to receive it, you'll definitely get more opportunity. I haven't really looked into what's to come in the future. Like, my plan right now is to still do school-based therapy, at least for this next school year. It'll probably be my last school year, but I don't know if I'm going to like search out like a group practice that works with adolescents, teens, and families, or children, adolescents, and families, or if I should just do it on my own. But right now I'm just like enjoying just knowing that I have that space, that like freedom to move around if I want to. So I'm just chilling for right now. Mary said, did you do anything specific to cope with testing anxiety or being overwhelmed by all the study material that was helpful? Yes, I did. I made sure that I didn't want to study like all the way up until the day of. So I did give myself the day before to just be free, do something fun, spend time with my kids. And I also made sure that I wanted to take it like as soon as possible, but like the end of the school year was coming up, and like everything hit the fan at the end of the school year. I was still doing crisis up until the last day of school. So I'm glad that I wasn't like too much in a rush, and I gave myself time to at least kind of settle down from things. And then I went on a vacation the week before I started studying, just to kind of get, rest from the school semester and to prepare myself going into studying, but I also wouldn't study like all day. I would allot time to study because one, I can't sustain my attention for that long. Like once I started like having to read questions like over and over, the same question over and over again, I had to take a break. So I would either go outside, I would again like do something with my kids and just kind of break up so it wasn't feeling like I was just trying to pile all this information in my head. As far as like the actual like test anxiety, once I'm there, I'm kind of focused, but it's the leading up to that I have to work on. And so I pretty much just try to not do everything, not to just focus on the test and give myself that day of. But one of my coworkers and my old coworkers, she actually planned like a really like something fun to do after taking the test. And I think that was a really good idea to like either like just like go ahead and schedule like some sort of self-care thing after you're finished with the test. Because no matter what you do, no matter what the outcome is of the test, like it's always good to give yourself time to kind of decompress from studying and just high emotions, period. So, but that was kind of what I do. I do a lot of praying before the test. I can't say I slept all that well, but um, at least like giving myself a break during the day helped me a lot. How many questions are on the exam and how are the questions broken down? I believe there's 170 on the exam. 20 are test questions. And so in the book, it explains that the 20 they take just 5 random questions from each content area. And so that gives you your score. I'm not sure how they determine, I know some tests are supposed to be harder than others. So you'll have to answer less correct on the harder test. I'm not sure what they use to decipher, like this is a hard test and this isn't a hard test. But that's kind of how they break down that. So is it broken down by area, topic? The questions on the test aren't, so it's not like you go through and you get to assessment and planning, but there are questions from each of those content groups. I think I know assessment and planning is one. Human and behavior is another one. Let's see if I can find. So human development, diversity, and behavior is one content area. Assessment, diagnosing, and treatment planning. Psychotherapy, clinical interventions, and case management. And the values and ethics. So they have questions out of each of those content areas. And so when you do the app, it'll tell you which content area that you are doing well in and which content area that you could do more studying in. So that's what I like about the app. Is there a scenario given and then 10 questions after the scenario? Can you please explain how the test looks? So that question Shanae, what do you mean by, is there a scenario given and then 10 questions after?
Well, I guess, because I know the way you described it, you said it's more scenario based. So I'm thinking about these long paragraphs. So is it like after you read this paragraph, maybe 8 or 10 questions about that scenario, or
No.
170 scenarios? Like, yeah, how does it look? Yeah.
It pretty much felt like 170 scenarios. That's what made me
Okay.
like, that's what took me quite a bit of time actually completing the test and answering all the questions, because a lot of the questions were all scenarios.
But one question after
Mhm.
the scenario. Okay.
Yeah, all for one question, and they were different scenarios. So it took me a minute to like, because I would have to read the whole scenario, then figure out what the question was asking me. And then also the answers were pretty lengthy as well. So I'm not really sure why they set it up like that, because that is a lot of question, or that's a lot of information to try to read through. But that's how it was for my test. Can you talk a little bit about the process from supervision to actual sitting?
You can, Mary has her hand raised. Go ahead and answer Mary's
Oh,
question
okay.
first.
I just didn't, it's on the same topic of the last question. Just wanted to clarify. So you're saying there's 170 questions, but only 20 of them are graded?
No, 20 of them are practice tests.
Oh,
Or-
they're thrown out.
yeah.
Okay, that's how the other exam was, but I just interpreted it wrong. Okay. Woo, thank you.
But when you do, what I did was the questions, like when I did the practice test and I answered 170 questions, I don't know why in my head I felt like I needed to, like, I just automatically subtracted 20 to get how many answers I answered correctly. But I think you should still like do it from 170, just because you don't know which like question it could be, which kind of sucks because you don't know if it's going to be a question that you answer right that gets thrown out. But that's the way they have it set up. The actual process from supervision, from the inner supervision to sitting, was pretty easy. I think we turned in all the paperwork to the board, and then you do the whole application like you do for your LMSW. They approve it, and then you can go on the website and schedule your test. So it was pretty easy. I didn't have any.
I was wondering what, because it used to take about 30 days from supervision verification to the actual approval. So I guess I was wondering how long after we turned in the paperwork was it like that for you?
It felt like, I think and if it was about 30 days. And I think only because I actually didn't like go and apply, or for some reason I really forgot like what the process was for like even scheduling the test. So I thought you scheduled, I don't know why I thought you scheduled the test and then like apply for the license afterwards, but you definitely apply first, and then they give you like a code to go on the website and schedule your test. So yeah, I got a little confused with that part.
And I asked that because Michaela got confused too, and I wanted to make sure, especially, we got Shanika, Amanda, Katrina, Emily, all graduating soon. I want to make sure we know. I'm going to get the paperwork in hopefully within a week, right? So as soon as they get the paperwork in, we won't hear from the board. Then, I mean, like, I'm done. They're not going to say, okay, Renita, you're done. They just have your paperwork and it's in your file now. Then the next step is you actually have to go to the board pay that money, is it still $75 or is it 100 now?
I think it's no, it's 75.
$75,
Mhm.
apply to take your LCSW. You can't
Mhm.
even go to Pearson View and do none of that other stuff till you do the steps at the board. They're already gonna have your transcript, the supervision verification, and then what was the other thing that you needed?
I think that was, oh, it was like a citizenship type
I knew
thing.
there was 4 things, right? So your application, $75, our paperwork after supervision, your transcripts, and then the immigration
Yeah.
questionnaire thing that they have. Once they get all of that, I think it's about a 30-day window. And then you get a code. That's what you use for Pearson View, right? Or
Yes.
ASWB.
But I didn't get anything that, like, after we turned in all our paperwork, I didn't get anything that verified that they received it, that they had it. So I think I was also waiting on that as well. And yeah, it didn't come in. So I guess you find out when you apply, and if they don't have something, then they'll let you know. But yeah, I didn't get like a verification or anything like that.
Can I ask something really quick?
Mhm.
Okay, so when Renita sent in the paperwork, we technically can go ahead and apply, but or do we need to wait about 30 days before we do that? So we could go ahead and do it, and then they'll send us something in the mail once they got everything.
Yeah.
Because we turning in our transcript and all that stuff.
You
Okay.
don't have to turn in your transcript because they already, since it's been, I think since it's less than a certain amount of years, I feel like
Okay.
it's 5 or some years, that you don't have to turn in your transcript. So all I literally had to do was just pay the fee and apply it online.
Gotcha. Okay. I was thinking like once Renita sent the stuff in, what you were saying, that's probably what you were waiting on. You would think you were gonna get something.
Mhm.
We're not gonna
Yeah, I
do
thought they would at least give it a thumbs up or something,
Be
but
telling y'all this in the emails. I'm like, they're not going to say anything. Yeah, I'm still just gonna wait. And so I guess I wanted to make sure I said it again to at least these people on the call. After I turn in, y'all, it's on you. You gotta then take the ball and run with it, right? So do y'all all hear that? I will turn it in within a week. Literally, I will. Or I say give them a week because I put it in the mail, get through the, snail mail. So give the board a week. But then after that, you gotta take the ball and run with it. Okay, y'all got that? Okay, all right. Brittni, there's some other questions too as well.
Malikia said, how was the testing site arranged? Were you testing with other individuals? If yes, is it possible to test in a more restrictive setting? I did test with other individuals, at least at the testing site I'm at. But it was like people taking all kinds of different tests. Like there was a guy taking a business exam. And then like I know the nurses take their test there too. And it was pretty full that morning. So when I took my LMSW, it wasn't full, but this particular day I chose, it was pretty full. It was very quiet. It's the testing site I'm at, it's like a cubicle. So I barely even noticed that there were other people around me because I was so focused on the test. But when you say a more restrictive setting, do you mean like a setting with no one else, or?
For me, like when I took the LMSW, like it kind of bothers me when people start getting up and moving, and I know they're not testing probably for the same thing I'm testing for, but it's just it bothers me. It throws me off because I'm like, oh, okay, like, am I here too long? Like, how much time do I got left if you're getting up? So I just wonder, like, is that an option to maybe have something that's more restrictive? But you said you have a cubicle, which I didn't have at my other testing site. It was just like an open room and I could see everybody and everybody could see
Oh
me.
no.
But getting a cubicle, that seems a lot better than what I was in.
Oh yeah, and then they also offered headphones too. Like if you don't like hearing people, I felt like I was clearing my throat a lot. I felt like I was bothering everybody in there. But they give you headphones to use as well if you like want to block out noise or anything like that so you can focus. But yeah, it was pretty it was very quiet, not a lot of interruption at all. I was able to focus, and then like they have the timer up there, so I was always constantly like looking to make sure I wasn't spending too much time, and that I would have enough time to answer questions or to look at my flag questions at the end. Let me see. Are they still requiring masks in the testing site? No, at least not where I was. Not a person had a mask on. But and I just noticed who asked me that, and I saw why that might be important. So congratulations, Shanique. Even though I'm sad I wasn't here to see the dudes like with everybody else. It said, in learning how to study, I was told to read the last sentence of the question first. What are your thoughts about this with the LICSW exam? Did you utilize this method? I didn't utilize that. I just read it again. Like I would read the information and then I would have to literally tell myself, like in my head, of course, but like tell myself in my head, like, what is the question asking? Like, okay, I have this information. What are they asking? And then I would look at the answers to see. And then I also would have to like ask what part of because a lot of it is, well, some of the questions will give you a paragraph, and they'll ask you like what step was skipped. And I think that was just like their way of making sure that you know what the therapeutic process is. Like, did they miss engagement? Did they miss the assessment part? Did they, are they at termination? What are your objectives in the termination process? So that was really what I saw like in my test, because it was a lot of scenario, and that's why I was mentioning that it may be worth a lot. Like there is a section in the book that talks about like the whole therapeutic process, like where you start from engagement, assessment, planning, and everything like that. I would focus on that and make sure you know like what the objectives are for a clinician in each of those sections. But I did have to focus on what they were asking me, because again, I was filling in blanks and I guess coming up with an answer, a question for myself based off of filling in the blanks. But I would have to definitely focus and say to myself, like, what are they asking? To kind of make sure that I'm understanding what answer I should be looking for. What is the difference between the LICSW? Those are the same. So in different states, they just refer to some don't use licensed independent clinical social worker, some just use licensed clinical social worker. I think there was like another one that people use that just to kind of like show that they're a clinical social worker. But that's the only difference, at least from my understanding. Oh, I thought you were asking if I asked for any special accommodations beforehand. I was trying to work on that before, but wasn't able to, but I made it work. And I think that was all the questions I see here, unless anyone else had any more questions.
Can I say three things as someone who has taken the test, taught the test, had students pass the test?
Yeah.
One, Michaela said the same thing to you, to what you said. There was only one question about medicine, which that is interesting. And then you only had one DSM question. And so one of my thought process with the DSM, because the DSM-5 just changed and they were transitioning that. And then the TRs are usually a 3 to 5 year process, but they got the TR pretty quickly out. So I'm wondering if they don't have as many DSM questions because of that external transition, but that's neither here nor there. You still got to know the DSM in Alabama because we can now diagnose people. So still know it, right? Still know it. The other thought I had was, do not leave any questions blank. When Brittni was talking, saying having this many questions answered, because the questions are weighted, right? So there could be one question that's like worth 0.5 points, and then there's a question that might be worth 5 points, right? And that's why the weird percentage that Brittni was talking about was throwing her off. And so, you know, a recall question, a rare recall question on the clinical could be 0.5, whereas I like to call them vignette-based question is worth 5 points. So don't leave any question blank. You still have a 25% chance of getting it right, okay? So don't leave any question blank. And then the last thought, oh, I had a third one. Went away because I didn't write it down. And I told myself to write it down. do so. But don't leave any question blank, you guys. And finally, when I send the supervision verification form in, the board is not going to talk to us. That's it. Like, they like to talk to us at the beginning, but after that, they don't, you know, they're like, oh, she's done it. You know, you got to take the ball and run with it. So just know that once that's done, it's done. And I agree with Brittni. I think that there's hardly any recall questions on the clinical. This is truly a critical thinking exam. You got to have critical thinking. And one of the things, you know, Shanae, I wanted to just touch really quickly. I think what we're trying to do, how we shifted supervision, we're saying what the overarching theory or theoretical or practice model is, and then you guys are coming in with your own scenarios, as Brittni said. So we're getting to have some critical thinking surrounding the theoretic practice or model so we can see it in 15 different ways. And so that might be the, besides, you know, like Shanika did, going again, a clinical job, or, you know, all of that. Outside of that, coming in and hearing how everybody is using these interventions will allow you to think about how you're seeing it on the exam. And then finally, don't add nothing to the question. What the question is the question is the question is. Don't add anything, don't subtract anything, because that will get you every time. And I wrote the trap. The trap is truly trying to answer those questions based on how you're doing it in your agency. Don't do that. I think I called it the trap. Don't do that. That is the trap. And I'm so glad that Brittni brought that up. Brittni, we are so proud of you. You did it, girl.
Thank you.
I did have a question. I know you're licensed, I think, in Texas. Are you going to go ahead and update your license in the other states that you were licensed as an LMSW, or are you going to wait for a minute?
I was actually looking at that this week because I didn't know if I had to wait or do they like, okay, so then I'll be hopping on
Oh,
that.
you know what? You're right. Some states, for reciprocity, they don't call it that, but just for ease of conversation, you're right. Some states, you have to show that you've been in independent practice, which you are now, for 2 to 3 years. So yeah, you look into it. Let me know what they say. You're absolutely right. Because Because that's why I had to wait in New York. I had to wait 10 years for New York.
10 years after like getting your clinical license.
To use the reciprocity rule, right? You can still do it, but I didn't want to have to get references.
How close are we to this interstate compact? Because I just saw the counselors just passed theirs.
That's so good for them. I wish social workers would get our lives together. I know. Y'all, Brittni is, for those of you who've been in supervision with Brittni, she's on freaking summer break. Summer break. Her new job allows her to take summer break. So we're just all the new changes. I'm glad you're going to take your time. You're not going to slip into anything. And you're going to like, okay, what are my options with this thing? And then do the damn thing. Yeah. So good for you, Brittni. Good for you. We are super proud of you. Y'all, wasn't this good? Yes.
Thank you.
This was great. All right, you guys. Brittni, thank you. We're going to get our lives together and we're going to have Tamika, Brittni, and then those who are graduating this year. We're going to start an alumni group so y'all can come back and tell us all the good stuff that's going on. So, and get some support and love. All right, those who I need to see on Wednesday, I will see on Wednesday. For the rest of you guys, I'll see you next month. All right. Bye. Thanks, Brittni.